Hey guys, this is Ashley from Downright Bookish, and today I'm going to be doing my December wrap-up. I managed to read 3 books in the month of December, which was pretty impressive, though I wanted to read more, though I always want to read more in December, and I realize I probably won't have the time, even though I have more time off. I'm doing other things. But for some reason, I always think that December is going to be my best reading month, and it never turns out to be that way. But I'm pretty proud of 3 books. Let's get into the books that I read. The first book I picked up was 100,000 Words by Bob Proell, and this is actually a book I wanted to read for Buzzwordathon, and I started it, but continued it afterwards. This book actually really surprised me in a very pleasant way. I was really happy with this book and I really enjoyed it. So basically, this book follows a mother and son who are traveling from New York to California and going to all the different major cities following the a comic convention. The mother was part of a TV series, kind of like the X-Files, so it's a very classic sci-fi TV show that she was a star on. So she is basically doing meet and greets kind of at this comic convention. So she's taking her son with her, but as the story progresses, dark things happen about the past and reasons why the show ended, why she stopped going to the show. I forgot to mention also that her son's father was her co-star, so they had a romantic relationship, had a child, and then after the show ended, she moved to New York to pursue more acting, like in theater and that sort of thing. So now she's traveling back to California with her son. And at the beginning of the book, we're not really sure why. It's kind of just thinking, oh, they're following this convention, they're doing the convention. But there's subtle hints that there is much more deeper reason for their trip. What I really liked about this book is the amount of foreshadowing that I think that was done really skillfully. The writing is just beautiful. We follow mainly the mother and son, but there are also other people that are also kind of in this convention that we follow. So there's one younger kid, I guess he's like in his 20s. He is a graphic designer for this very indie comic, and we follow kind of his story, and we also follow a female comic writer. We're following their stories, kind of exploring, are comics dying? What is changing with comics? Is how females are kind of treated in this industry. It's so nuanced. It covers so many different topics and it does it so well. I was so impressed with this book. I really enjoyed it. And if you are at all interested in comics, or if you just love literary fiction, this is a book to check out. I was really surprised and pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. The ending is just so satisfying, and the way Bob writes children, he writes from the son's perspective, and I believe he's 10 or 8 in this story. I think it's done really well. The boy is very smart, so you definitely get to see a lot of that, but it's also just the way you see him kind of describing what's going on with his parents' relationship. And it just feels like it's coming from a child, and I really enjoyed that. So I'm so impressed by this book. I absolutely loved it. I was really happy about this book that I went to see if he had written anything else, and he came out with a book in 2018 or 2019. So I picked that one up too, so I'll be reading it very soon. But really fantastic book. Next, after that, I read The Girls of Cerumen Shadow by Natasha Nang, and I have a full kind of spoiler review of that, so I'll put a link down below. I basically kind of did a vlog style video where I discussed the book as I read it. This book is the sequel to Girls of Paper and Fire, which is a book that follows a young girl who becomes the concubine of the king. She becomes a concubine, but soon falls in love with one of the other concubines, and it's about their kind of journey trying to get out of this very traumatic experience and uprise the king. So this is the continuation of that story. There's a lot of drama that happens at the end of the first book that really gets brought into this second book, so it's kind of hard to talk about it, but I think the impact that the first book had was kind of missing in the second book. This book kind of felt a little meandering. There were a lot of essential characters that died in this book, I guess. I hope that's not spoiling it, but their deaths didn't really seem important or very didn't seem to really add much to the plot or story, and I didn't really feel like I cared much about the characters that died, even though they were more main characters. Regardless, I was a little disappointed of this story. I'm still going to continue on with the series because I do think it has a lot of potential, and I'm curious to know how she kind of concludes the story. I'm not sure if this is going to be a trilogy or if there are going to be more than 3 books, but I'm definitely going to continue on at least into the 3rd book, if it's not the final one. I think if you read Girls of Paper and Fire and are kind of iffy about continuing on with the story, I don't know if this one is really going to do anything for you, but if you actually loved Girls of Paper and Fire, I definitely think it's worth continuing on with the series. So it kind of really just depends on how much you are invested in that first book, but I really enjoyed the first book, and I thought the topics that it covered about trauma and kind of like about trauma and rape, I thought it was done really well, and I really appreciated like how delicately she touched on those topics, and I think all of that is still true for the second book. I just think overall the plot kind of wasn't there for this one. So, and the last book that I finished was The Fox and the Star by Coralie Breckford Smith. This is a children's picture book, but I mean it has words in it too. And this one was actually on Book Outlet, so I figured now was the perfect time to check it out. I was interested in it because I really was intrigued by the graphics. I think they're just really beautifully done. I just thought it was very interesting. It is like a children's book, so the amount of depth in it is not as, I mean, it doesn't have as much depth, but I do think it handles the idea of loss very well. We follow this fox who has a really strong connection to the specific star, and then one day the star is gone, and he's kind of trying to find where his star is. The topic of loss is kind of discussed very well in this book, and again, I think mainly I was mostly intrigued by the illustrations of this book, and I really did enjoy it. So yeah, December was a very good reading month in terms of like my enjoyment of the books. I finished with a book that a new author that I discovered that I really enjoy, and I read the second book in a series and caught up in a series that I was really interested in. And while I didn't really enjoy that second book, I'm still feel like accomplished by being caught up in a series that I like. So yeah, there's that. So let me know what books you read in December, or if you read any of these, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you guys very soon with another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.